At the beginning of the 1990s, British roads were home to strange, fast, and exotic cars. But even among them, the OS Topcat looked like a vehicle from another planet. This extraordinary machine resembled a military fighter jet far more than a conventional sports car. Measuring over 6.5 meters long, this futuristic monster featured a cockpit inspired by the Tornado jet fighter, a tandem seating layout like a military aircraft, massive fins, and a centrally mounted Jaguar V12 engine. Most shocking of all, this cosmic-looking creation was not merely a flashy motor show exhibit. The car was fully road legal in the United Kingdom, and its creator, Bill Carter, regularly drove it to work. At a time when supercars such as the Ferrari Testarossa or Lamborghini Diablo were considered the height of extravagance, the OS Topcat looked like a vision of the future taken straight from a science fiction movie. That is exactly why the car is still regarded today as one of the wildest and most unusual road-going creations ever built in Europe. Interestingly, the project was not created by a major automotive corporation, but by a single man with extraordinary imagination and immense engineering talent. The story of the OS Topcat proves that true automotive passion can create something far more fascinating than many production supercars built by the world's largest manufacturers. Today, this incredible vehicle has achieved legendary status in British alternative motoring culture and remains a symbol of an era when creativity knew absolutely no limits. The history of the OS Topcat is inseparably connected with Bill Carter, an extremely talented British constructor and cartographer working for Ordnance Survey, the national mapping agency of Great Britain. Carter had always been fascinated by aviation, futuristic design, and unconventional vehicles. Already in the 1980s, he began building his own cars, resembling machines from science fiction films. Interestingly, his employer supported these extraordinary projects and even treated them as promotional tools. Carter's first famous creation was the G-Whiz, a futuristic single-seat vehicle resembling a fighter aircraft. However, it was the Topcat that became his most recognizable project. The constructor wanted to create a car that would look like a combination of a military jet fighter and a futuristic sports car. The main inspiration came from the British Panavia Tornado fighter jets, whose canopies served as the basis for the car's unusual cockpit. Carter did not rely on ready-made platforms or production body shells. He personally designed and built practically the entire vehicle from scratch. A completely original chassis, special frame, futuristic bodywork, and highly unconventional interior layout were all created specifically for the project. The Topcat was intended not only to look spectacular, but also to be fully functional and capable of everyday driving on public roads. That was precisely what distinguished Carter's creation from many other futuristic concepts. The car genuinely drove and attracted enormous attention everywhere it appeared. The most distinctive element of the OS Topcat was, of course, its extraordinary styling. The car looked like a combat vehicle from a futuristic science fiction movie. The body was extremely long, very low, and filled with aerodynamic additions. Huge spoilers, fins, and sharp lines resembling aviation structures appeared throughout the design. The most striking feature, however, was the passenger cabin directly inspired by the cockpit of a Tornado fighter jet. Instead of traditional doors, the car used a characteristic upward-opening canopy similar to that of a military aircraft. The driver and passenger sat in a tandem arrangement, one behind the other, exactly like pilots in military training jets. Such a layout was extremely rare, even among the most exotic supercars. The interior resembled an aircraft cockpit more than a conventional car cabin. Carter nevertheless ensured that the vehicle remained practical and comfortable for daily use. Unlike the earlier G-Whiz model, which was more extreme and focused solely on the driver, the Topcat could comfortably carry 2 people. The futuristic appearance of the vehicle meant that it instantly attracted media attention, as well as crowds of curious onlookers. Many people found it hard to believe that the car was legal for use on public roads. Yet Bill Carter regularly drove it through British streets, causing a sensation everywhere he went. Even today, the design of the Topcat still looks incredibly futuristic, and it is difficult to believe that the car was built more than 30 years ago. From a construction standpoint, the OS Topcat was a true masterpiece of individual engineering. Bill Carter did not stop at creating a spectacular body shell, but designed practically the entire car from scratch. The construction was based on a specially built chassis and frame handcrafted by the constructor himself. The body featured extremely streamlined shapes and was designed with aerodynamics in mind. The enormous length of over 6.5 meters made the car resemble an experimental prototype rather than a conventional sports car. Particularly distinctive were the centrally mounted engine and the cabin positioned far ahead of the front axle. Thanks to this, the Topcat achieved proportions very similar to military fighter aircraft. The vehicle also featured a special hydraulic suspension system for the front section, allowing ground clearance to be increased when driving over obstacles. This solution was extremely practical because such a low vehicle would otherwise have struggled on ordinary roads. Carter also ensured proper structural rigidity and safety during high-speed driving. Despite its highly unconventional appearance, the car was fully functional and approved for road use. That was exactly what impressed people the most. In a period before the widespread use of modern computer technologies, creating such an advanced vehicle single-handedly was absolutely extraordinary. The Topcat stood as proof of immense technical skill and creative vision. The heart of the OS Topcat was a powerful 5.3-liter Jaguar V12 engine, sourced from the Jaguar XJ12. During the 1980s and 1990s, Jaguar's V12 units were considered among the most characteristic British luxury and performance engines. Bill Carter used this power plant as the foundation for his futuristic creation. According to various sources, the engine was significantly modified and equipped with 6 Weber carburetors. Some reports mention an output of around 330 horsepower, while others claim as much as 600 horsepower in the Gatto Turbo 200 version. Regardless of the exact figure, the car possessed performance capabilities far beyond most conventional road cars of its era. According to its creator, the Topcat was capable of exceeding 200 miles per hour, meaning over 320 kilometers per hour. These figures are difficult to verify conclusively, but the very fact that a centrally mounted V12 engine was used in a hand-built custom vehicle was deeply impressive. The characteristic sound of the 12-cylinder Jaguar engine perfectly matched the car's futuristic appearance. Carter wanted his project not only to look spectacular, but also to be extremely fast. That is precisely why the Topcat resembled a land-based fighter jet more than a traditional sports car. At that time, very few road-going vehicles could boast similar performance and such an outrageous design. The interior layout of the OS Topcat was one of the most extraordinary aspects of the entire project. The driver and passenger sat in a tandem arrangement, exactly like pilots in military jet aircraft. This made the front section of the car extremely narrow and gave it a highly aerodynamic profile. The cabin was covered by a special canopy taken from a Tornado fighter jet. This solution made entering the vehicle feel more like climbing into a combat aircraft than getting into a car. The interior was futuristic, yet still functional. Unlike the extreme G-Wiz, the Topcat used a more traditional steering wheel instead of an aircraft-style control yoke. This made the car easier to drive during normal everyday use. The seats were upholstered in leather, and the driving position offered excellent forward visibility, thanks to the huge glass canopy. The entire interior was intended to resemble the cockpit of a modern aircraft. At a time when most supercars still relied on relatively conventional design solutions, the Topcat appeared to be a machine from the future. Interestingly, despite its extremely extravagant appearance, the car was genuinely used every day. Bill Carter regularly commuted to work in it, which only added to the legend surrounding the vehicle. Even today, imagining such a gigantic, futuristic machine with a fighter jet canopy traveling along ordinary British roads feels almost surreal. The OS Topcat was also completely unique in terms of its design philosophy. Unlike most supercars developed by major automotive corporations, the Topcat was created primarily from passion and fascination with aviation. Bill Carter was not trying to compete with Ferrari or Lamborghini. He wanted to build something absolutely unique and impossible to confuse with any other car in the world. That is why his creation resembled an experimental military vehicle more than a traditional grand tourer. The characteristic fins, huge spoilers, and flowing lines made the car appear capable of flight. In a sense, the Topcat was also a manifesto of creativity and individualism. In an era of increasingly standardized automotive design, Carter demonstrated that a single person with the right skills could create something more original than entire design departments at major manufacturers. The car generated enormous emotions and often shocked people with its presence on public roads. Some considered it a work of modern art, while others saw it as complete madness. Regardless of opinion, one thing was certain. The OS Topcat was utterly unique. Even today, it is difficult to find another car that looks equally bold and futuristic. That is exactly why Carter's creation remains one of the most fascinating chapters in the history of British alternative motoring. One of the most interesting aspects of the OS Topcat story was the fact that the car was genuinely legal for use on public roads. Many futuristic projects end up as static concepts or exhibition vehicles, yet Bill Carter's creations could legally drive on British streets. The creator himself regularly used the Topcat for commuting to work. It is not difficult to imagine the reactions of other motorists seeing a gigantic futuristic vehicle resembling a military fighter jet driving beside them. The car caused a sensation everywhere it appeared. During the 1990s, photographs of the Topcat frequently appeared in automotive magazines and publications devoted to unusual vehicles. The car was also used by Ordnance Survey for promotional purposes. As a result, the project gained far more publicity than most similar amateur-built creations. Interestingly, Carter's earlier G-Wiz model was even purchased by the Sultan of Brunei, famous for possessing one of the world's largest collections of exotic automobiles. This demonstrated how impressive Carter's projects were even to the most demanding collectors. The Topcat became a symbol of the creativity of independent British constructors. Today, the vehicle is regarded as one of the wildest road-legal machines ever created in Europe. Its story proves that some of the most fascinating automotive projects emerge far away from major automotive corporations. In terms of performance, the OS Topcat remains surrounded by a certain amount of mystery because the car never underwent official comparison testing, typical of production supercars. Bill Carter nevertheless claimed that the vehicle was capable of speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. Even if the real performance was somewhat lower, the sheer potential of the massive V12 engine combined with the highly aerodynamic bodywork was deeply impressive. The car was extremely low and long, improving stability at high speeds. At the same time, the futuristic construction could also raise concerns regarding safety during truly extreme driving. That is why many people emphasized that exceeding 200 kilometers per hour in the Topcat required considerable courage. The car lacked the advanced safety systems found in modern supercars. Nevertheless, Carter's machine impressed with its engineering sophistication and design boldness. At the time, even many production sports cars could not match such performance figures. The distinctive sound of the Jaguar V12 engine and the incredibly futuristic silhouette ensured that the Topcat made an enormous impression, both standing still and in motion. The car resembled an experimental military prototype more than a conventional road vehicle. That unique character is exactly why the legend of the Topcat survives to this day, despite the limited amount of available technical information. Production of the OS Topcat was extremely limited. In practice, the car existed as a single hand-built example created by Bill Carter. It was not part of any series production, or even a limited run of several cars. Every component was individually crafted, making the vehicle absolutely unique. This exclusivity is today one of the key elements of its legendary status. In the collector car world, hand-built one-off vehicles often achieve enormous values, especially if they possess an interesting history and unusual design. The Topcat fits perfectly into that category. The car is not only rare, but also represents an era of automotive creativity that practically no longer exists. Today, creating a similar vehicle would be almost impossible because of strict regulations and homologation costs. Bill Carter operated in a time when independent constructors had far greater freedom to realize their visions. Thanks to this, a vehicle completely detached from the standards of the modern automotive industry was born. That is why the Topcat is treated more as a piece of technical art than as an ordinary automobile. For collectors of futuristic concepts and fans of unusual motoring, the car possesses enormous historical and emotional value. Determining the current value of the OS Topcat is extremely difficult because the vehicle almost never appears publicly on the collector market. However, it can be assumed that its price could reach a very high level. The uniqueness of the project, its handcrafted construction, extraordinary history, and recognition among fans of alternative motoring make the Topcat a true collector's rarity today. Depending on its condition and collector interest, the car could potentially be worth anywhere from several $100,000 to over €1,000,000. Vehicles symbolizing the automotive creativity of the 1980s and 1990s are becoming increasingly valuable, and the Topcat perfectly captures the spirit of that era. An additional factor increasing its value is the fact that the vehicle was fully road legal and genuinely used by its creator. It was not merely a static concept sitting in a museum. It was a real road-going machine capable of everyday driving. In the collector world, such stories carry enormous significance. The Topcat's value is also increased by its complete uniqueness. Since only one example was built, the vehicle practically has no equivalents. Today, many people view it as a British counterpart to the wildest American concept cars, but executed with European precision and the immense passion of a single individual. The OS Topcat remains one of the most extraordinary and wildest road-going cars ever created. It was a combination of fascination with aviation, engineering creativity, and the automotive madness of the early 1990s. Its futuristic bodywork, tornado fighter jet canopy, centrally mounted Jaguar V12 engine, and ability to drive legally on public roads made the car seem almost unreal. Yet the Topcat genuinely existed, and for years appeared on British streets, causing a sensation everywhere it went. Bill Carter created something far greater than just a car. He built a moving work of art and a symbol of an era when individual creativity could give birth to absolutely unique machines. Today, the Topcat serves as a reminder of a time when motoring could still be wild, unpredictable, and entirely free from corporate limitations. Even after more than 3 decades, the car still looks futuristic and still generates enormous emotions. That is exactly why the OS Topcat remains a legend of alternative motoring and one of the most unusual vehicles ever built in Great Britain.